So I'm going to be talking about the NBA's plan to resume the league in Orlando, and I'm also going to be talking about some of the reasons why some players are in favor of returning and some players are against returning. Because of this, we're going to have to go back to March 11th, 2020, and that was when the league was suspended when Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, who are two players on the Utah Jazz, tested positive for COVID-19. Um, they were in the middle of a game actually. Well, they were about to start the game, and then they canceled the season. Well, no, they suspended the season. Cancel is a different thing. So the league has been suspended for, well, today's June 18th. So the league is suspended for about 3 months and a week now. And for a long time in between that, people thought that we weren't going to get, that basketball was going to end because the risk of contracting COVID-19 through playing with each other and traveling back and forth, the risk just seemed too high. And it wasn't until about a couple of days ago when Adrian Wojnarowski, he's like an NBA insider, he posted on Twitter that the league and the board of governors had decided on protocol in returning to play. So there was like a 100-page memo reporting how the league is going to come back and what the players are going to do, what the players have to do to stay safe. Testing regimen, they're going to have daily testing, how they have to socially distance within the bubble. And by the way, if you don't already know what a bubble is, they're going to take all these players and the teams and I mean, not the owners, but the teams and coaches that are currently in the playoff picture, which means that they're seeded 1 through 8, and some of the teams that are close enough to being in the playoffs but could have qualified had the season continued normally. They're going to take all those teams, it's 22 in this case. They're going to take those 22 teams and put them in Orlando, Florida at the Wide World of Sports. So there's going to be a basketball complex there. They have practice facilities, weight rooms, and all that stuff. They're going to be essentially quarantined there until the latest date, I'm pretty sure, is October 12th. So that segues me into one of the reasons that these players are against returning, which is the idea that if you were to go on a finals run and you're gonna stay in the bubble from the end of July to the middle of October, you're gonna be in that bubble for about 2.5 months, which means that you have to stay away from your family and friends for that amount of time. Well, granted, if you were in that situation, they have this thing where you can bring family back, but just for the majority of players who won't reach that stage. That's one of the reasons. Another reason is because this, the idea of the league coming back is coming back at a time where America is facing a lot of problems right now, and the one that's the glaring issue right now is George Floyd's murder and the protests that have ensued because of it. They started in Minnesota and they've stretched from there to the entire country. I've even seen some protests in like Berlin and London, which just goes to show you how passionate some people are about this issue. And because of this, because the attention on this issue has kind of reached not only just the issue of police brutality and systemic racism, but kind of just what the Black Lives Matter movement encompasses. Some players feel that resuming basketball could it could take away from the social justice they're trying to push right now. One of the figureheads behind this movement was Kyrie Irving. He's a player who is one of the six voices on the National Basketball Players Association, or the NBPA, and he organized a Zoom call with a lot of players, and they discussed the. Well, Kyrie was saying how he felt that the league should sit out and protest, and the fact that if they weren't going to play, then they have the potential to really make a stand and make the NBA's position on this viewpoint that much clearer. So that's one of the reasons why these players are against returning. But on the other side of that, some of the players and the majority of the owners feel that if these players do come back to play basketball, their voices could be just as much heard, if not even more, than if they were protesting outside of the bubble. There's also the financial implication, which is why the majority of owners are, well, at least I'm assuming that they're in favor of returning, because the league has already lost so much revenue as a result of the league being suspended for like 3 months right now. And if the league just canceled altogether, they would lose like $1 billion, and they would have to restructure the collective bargaining agreement in the NBA. And there are so many more financial implications behind that, but I'm not an expert. And where I stand on this is like, I'm okay with either thing happening. If the league does come back and these players are using their platforms to the best of their ability, then how could you be against that? You're getting basketball back, and it's shining light on an issue that affects millions of people, myself included. And but if the league decides that basketball is going to take away from this issue, and it would be best socially to make a stand and sit out, then I'm perfectly fine with that too. We're just gonna have to wait because again, it's the middle of June, and the league is planning on coming back in July 30th, and a lot can happen in a month and a half. So we'll see where that goes.